Let us pray. O God, our Heavenly Father, as we meet to celebrate the completion of this work of remembrance, we recall first with gratitude the care and concern of those who first erected a memorial here, their purpose that the sacrifice of airmen who died whilst on operations from this base should not be forgotten. We recall too the devotion of people from Beeston who have lovingly cared for this monument and grounds over the years, that these might continue to be a focus for the thoughts and prayers of all who pass this way, and especially at the annual ceremony of remembrance. And now we give thanks for the men who have been labouring at this new work these past weeks, but especially for former serving members of 392nd Bomb Group who have planned and made possible the rebuilding of the monument and extension of the grounds, making this corner of the village a fitting memorial to the 747 United States Airmen lost in missions from this base. We seek, Lord, your continued compassion upon relatives and friends of those who died in the cause of freedom, and your blessing on our dedication ceremony today. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen. Send her victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save our Queen. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. Many of us on what could be our final mission as veterans of the 392nd Bomb Group. To honor the 747 men who were killed in action while serving from this base. Their last living hours on earth were spent in the beautiful countryside near this village of Beeston. We also honor today all of those who served from the Allied cause from this base, many of whom are here today. The monument and memorial grounds we are dedicating today will not only remind us of the cost of freedom but will serve in perpetuity to remind all who follow us that we must forever be vigilant if we are to perpetuate our freedom from those who would deprive us of the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The monument will also be a continuing symbol of the combined will of our countries to fight together if and when we are attacked, united allies forever, defending each other and defending freedom whenever it is threatened. It is my privilege to welcome you, our British and American friends residing in England, on behalf of the 392nd Bomb Group Memorial Association. We especially include in our welcome those who have traveled from as far as Tokyo, Japan, and from many sections of the United States. All of you have come to join us here today in this beautiful county of Norfolk, East Anglia, even though most of you were not members of the military cadre occupying this base in World War II. For your interest in our cause, we thank you. Our Memorial Association was founded as an official veterans organization in 1985, assisted in Washington by United States Representative Ralph Regula and his Washington staff. Congressman Regula, in a phone conference with me last week, expressed his regrets personally and on behalf of other members of Congress who could not attend our dedication services. He stated, as one of our mentors, that he will be with us in his thoughts during our dedication today, though not here in person. Congressman Regula and Congressman Oxley were instrumental in securing representation of the State Department of the United States to the London office of the United States Embassy. A representative of the embassy will be recognized and subsequently address us today. In my remarks today, I would be remiss if I did not thank Bob Lane and Colonel Joe Bush for their participation in planning this project as members of the Memorial Committee and for their confidence in my carrying out their wishes. We as a committee hope we have fulfilled the intent of our membership to preserve, refurbish, and perpetuate the original obelisk. The original obelisk was constructed at the direction and leadership of Colonel Bush immediately following World War II, and we feel we have successfully reconstructed the obelisk and made permanent improvements in a manner which will favorably reflect the quality of performance and dedication to duty of the 392nd Bomb Group. In my humble opinion, we were without question a superior military unit. As representative of more than 700 association members, I wish to recognize the contribution of this monument by a Felix M. Gardner. We are appreciative and especially thankful to Tom and Jill Scott for their generous contribution of the expanded site, which includes the grounds on which you are now seated. Our association has perpetuated this recognition by inscriptions on the monument acknowledging the donors of these grounds. It is appropriate at this time to further recognize the unselfish efforts and devoted attention given by Tom and Jill in the supervision and reconstruction of these memorial grounds and monuments and assisting us in the arrangements for the dedication service today. Tom and Jill, no better friends do we have. The contribution and interest of the Beeston Parish
will be too young to remember the years between 1943 and 1945. Years which have been termed the American occupation, because at one moment just before the Normandy landings, there were no less than 1.5 million American servicemen stationed in Britain. Today, it's not fashionable to reflect on war. Rather do people look forward with hope. But in this country, and most especially in this region of England, and more particularly in this immediate community, we shall never allow ourselves to forget the sacrifice of our allies and our friends, for so you became, who crossed the Atlantic to stand by our side in the great struggle to finally free Europe from the shackles of Hitler. They were young men. They were brave men. They were a long way from their own home and families when they came into our midst, and we welcomed them. So today we salute and welcome warmly the representatives of the 392nd Bombardment Group of the 2nd Air Division, the 1st B-24H Liberator Unit to be assigned to the 8th Air Force European Theatre of Operations. And so also today we remember with gratitude and deep sincerity those Americans who, flying from bases in these parts, gave their lives defending the freedom which we who follow continue to enjoy.
Representing the mighty 3rd Air Force is Colonel Edward Chase, Vice Commander, who will address us.
Casualties and lost for all time almost 750 comrades. I would ask you to briefly reflect on those who gave the last full measure of devotion to such a noble cause. They came from our cities and our villages, from our prairies and from our mountains. They had long names and short names, were Catholics, Protestants, and Jews, or some had no religion. They were children of the wealthy as well as the poor. The only common thread of those we memorialize today was that they were all Americans who came to this good and gracious island at a time of need, and the dignity of their deaths removed for all time the differences of their birth. We shall always remember. There are those in our society who will tell you that their death in war is senseless, that nothing could be worse, and that we should take whatever steps to include a compromise of ideals and purpose to rid the world of its scourge. Certainly, those who have felt the stings of war will attest to its futility. But the sacrifices we honor today tell us that there are indeed things worse than death. Your deeds and your sacrifices have instilled in us, to use Stevenson's words, a sense of patriotism which is not short, frenzied outbursts of emotion, but the tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime. When Americans and British say they love their country, they mean not only that they love the hills, the prairies, and the plains, the mountains and the sea, but they love an inner air, an inner light, in which freedom lives and in which a man can draw the breath of self-respect. We shall always remember. So in rededicating this place, we pledge to rededicate ourselves, to carry forward your legacy of service, duty, and honor, ensuring that future generations, while reaping the benefits of a free society, never forget the awesome responsibilities the preservation of those freedoms entail. To those who from this place paid the ultimate sacrifice, we simply say, for you, good friends, day is done. Gone the sun from the lakes, from the hills, from the skies. All is well. safely rest. God is nigh. We shall always remember.
Thank you, sir.
Lord Lieutenant, visiting Americans, ladies and gentlemen, I am very grateful and indeed very proud to have been invited to take part in this ceremony here this morning. I am so pleased that on behalf of the people of Norfolk, I have been given the opportunity to express our gratitude for the service which your countrymen performed during the last war. It is no exaggeration to say that without the support which your countrymen provided, the whole of Europe would have been enslaved. Some of us, many of us here today, are too young to remember much about the war. But whatever our age, we are all aware of the debt of gratitude that this country owes to the United States of America. The 392nd Bombardment Group first arrived at Wendling in August 1943 and flew its first combat operation the following month. The aerodrome is called Wendling, and although most of the runways are indeed in Wendling, I believe in fact the occupants and the flyers ate and slept here in Beeston. Altogether, 285 operations were flown from this airfield, comprising 7,404 individual sorties and dropping no less than 17,000 tons of bombs. And when you realise, ladies and gentlemen, that the 392nd were only flying from here for 19 months, from September 1943 until April 1945, it means that on average there were nearly 4 operations per week involving something like 175 aircraft. That is indeed a record to be proud of. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I say to our visitors, welcome to Norfolk. And to the veterans who have come over from the States, welcome back, and thanks for all you did.
I'm sorry we did not have enough chairs for everybody, but we hope that you all can remain somewhat comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Burbeck. We are most pleased to have with us today a Member of Parliament for Norfolk, and formerly a member of the RAF during World War II. Mr. Ralph Howell has graciously accepted our invitation to speak on behalf of and in place of Mr. Richard Ryder, also a member of Parliament from this district, who was unable to attend. Mr. Howell, it's indeed a pleasure to welcome you.
Mr. President, Lord Lieutenant, ladies and gentlemen, it is a very great privilege for me to have an opportunity of saying a word here today, and a very unexpected one. But my colleague Richard Ryder is unable to be here due to his ministerial duties, and therefore I am very privileged to stand in for him. You have mentioned, Mr. President, that I was a member of the RAF, and I do remember, I think possibly I remember seeing the bombers from Wendling form up perhaps on their first mission, because when I was back on leave about that time before I went out to Italy, I remember seeing the huge formations forming over from Wendling and Shipton and other bases in the locality, and it was obvious from that moment on that we were going to win the war. The whole force of America was on our side, and I do think that we should remember that without these great bomber formations, the war would not have been won. Whatever some people think today, there is no doubt that Nazi Europe would not have been invaded without the great might of the Allied air forces, and so we must be extremely grateful. This, being asked to say these few words, has brought memories flooding back to me, because I was privileged and perhaps fortunate to have been part of an RAF bomber group in Italy under the command of the American 15th Air Force. And of course, we used the same airfields. The Americans bombed by day, and we bombed by night. You can imagine some of the ribbing that... we had a great comradeship there, and one which I will never forget. Perhaps the most important thing I remember is that we used to barter whiskey for some delicious ham in magnificent tins, which occasionally appeared in our mess. However, I feel somewhat ashamed that until Jill asked me to say these few words here today, that I didn't know of the tremendous sacrifice by members of the American Air Forces here from Wendling, and the great service which they achieved and the tremendous losses they suffered. I am also a little ashamed that, unlike the President and the Memorial and the Bomb Group Memorial Association, I have done nothing to commemorate any of my own colleagues, and I do admire you and congratulate you on doing what you have done. And also I think it's important that you are doing it not on the 40th anniversary of the end of the war, or the 50th anniversary of the beginning of the war, or whatever. You are doing it at a time which is just any, but not any particular time, but I think that means that we should always remember, every day of our lives, how much we owe to those who gave their lives during the war. And while I'm on my feet, I think we should not only think of the past, we should think with gratitude of the present and the great assistance which America generally has given to defend the Western world. as a senior partner in NATO, day after day, Americans are helping with the other forces of NATO to defend us, and we must keep up that guard indefinitely. Although I'm speaking for myself, I believe I'm expressing the views of the great majority of people in this country and throughout Europe in saying how very grateful we are for the continued presence and for all that America has done to defend the Western world.
Thank Lieutenant Colonel Robert Perry. Colonel Perry, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Lord Lieutenant, members of the 392nd, ladies and gentlemen, let me please begin by expressing my appreciation for the kind invitation for me to come up here and represent the embassy today. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure for myself. I would also like to express Ambassador Cato's best wishes to the members of the 392nd and the British and American friends that have come here today. I think it is best also to start with a phrase that I understand your King Henry VIII used when addressing his wives, and that is, "I won't keep you long." Fighter wings and groups during the war came under the control of the 8th Air Force. During my flying career in the United States, flying KC-135s and FB-111s, most of the units that I was assigned to also came underneath 8th Air Force, which is now headquartered at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. So I too have a soft spot in my heart for the 8th Air Force, or the mighty 8th, as well as the mighty 3rd, sir. The 392nd has many historical attachments to Beeston, and I think that its crews, along with all of the other Allied crews, Royal Air Force crews, that made the ultimate sacrifice, today is one of those ceremonies that we prove that we do not forget what they today. Those efforts were responsible for preserving the freedom and protecting the democracy that we live under. I think it fitting also that this dedication come at a time when the world's thoughts have turned back almost 50 years to that point in our history, and that the Battle of Britain, which is coming up for the 50th dedication next year, really signified the beginning of people's understanding of air power and what it meant. And again, the Royal Air Force, the Allied Air Force, and in no small measure the 392nd made it possible to bring that period of conflict to a successful conclusion. The people here at Beeston were very close and had a warm relationship with the members of the 392nd. It's obvious that that relationship extends even through to today. And speaking on behalf of my other members of the United States Air Force, and if I may, sir, of the 3rd Air Force, those units that are stationed here in the United Kingdom are fortunate in that the communities that surround them have also given their very warm friendship, very much like what the 392nd enjoyed almost 45 years ago. And for that, we're grateful. We have stood side by side and shoulder to shoulder with the United Kingdom for quite some time. We've been very proud to do so, and we will continue to do so. And I think the phrase that the media uses most often is a special relationship. Please don't make too much of, or too little of that. There is, in fact, a special relationship between our two countries. There has been, and I think there always will be. To conclude, I'd like to say once again, thank you. I appreciate being here. And once again, I feel it was an honor and a privilege for myself, and to extend once more the best wishes of Ambassador Cato and the United States government on today's dedication. Thank you.
County Commissioner of St. John's Ambulance Brigade, Deputy Lieutenant for Norfolk for Her Majesty the Queen, is a very busy lady, but today she speaks to us and serves in serving as the chairman of the Beeston Parish Council. It is a pleasure to present to you my friend and a dear friend of the 392nd Bomb Group Memorial Association, Jill Scott.
Lord Lieutenant, ladies and gentlemen, memories fade, events, men's deeds, both the mundane and the heroic, men's sacrifices that at the time helped to fight off oppression and helped to shape world events, become mere cold facts and figures in history books. This memorial was originally placed here in 1945 as an instant tribute to their friends and comrades who would never return to the States from Wendling Airfield. As it stands today, renovated by the Americans, not only is it a fitting tribute to those men, but also, and importantly, a constant reminder for all time of the cooperation and goodwill that can exist between nations and of what they can achieve together. Beeston will be proud to help ensure that this memorial will permanently stand as a tribute to all the men who served here and as a more vivid reminder of what they achieved, some at great sacrifice, than cold facts in a history book will ever be able so to do. Thank you.
Giving their lives so we might enjoy the fruits of freedom. Many others, some who are among us today, bought freedom with blood, suffering, anguish, and tears. Surviving veterans here today, more than 25 in number, representing our more than 700 members of the association, and representing further our comrades killed in action and those who survived, made the journey to Beeston Village today to dedicate this monument. They traveled from as far as the west coast of the United States, and too from the small communities and from the large cities, as did our comrades of more than 46 years ago. It is indeed my privilege to present these members of the 392nd Bomb Group Memorial Association, my comrades, to you today. Your program has names inserted as we knew were coming at the time of the printing. I will read off the names, and as I read them, I want these honored and most honored guests to stand. Henry W. Allen, John R. Conrad, Charles E. Dye, Alvin A. Goshumu, Robert E. Hamill, John C. Henning, Richard C. Hoover, Ben W. Hunsaker, Delmar C. Johnson, Roy Kempy, Myron Kyleman, Bertie Larrick, J.D. Long, Horace Harold N. Longacre, Oak Mackey, John F. Malloy, Keith E. Roberts, Cecil T. Rothrock, Clyde W. Smith, Henry C. Vaughn, Joseph B. Whitaker, Robert A. Wilkins, attending but not listed in your program, Leroy McTavish, Jack Urban. I trust I did not miss any.
Robert Martin.
Robert Martin here. Oh, sir. I did not realize that you had been able to attend. You may be seated. This organization. It is my distinct privilege to present to you Lawrence G. Gilbert, Colonel, United States Air Force, retired, and a cherished friend.
Lord Lieutenant, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to represent our 392nd Bomb Group Memorial Association and to speak for all the members of the group assigned this base during the war years. We are joined here with a common purpose: to remember, to respect, and to honor those we left behind. The memorial we are dedicating today is in proud and grateful memory of the 747 airmen who flew their final flight from these runways and all who served with them at this base. This is a solemn, heartfelt occasion for the group of our veterans present who came from all parts of the United States to join in this dedication. These veterans present include pilots, navigators, bombardiers, gunners, ground crew chiefs, and all the supporting specialists needed to support 48 four-engine bombers and their crews. There are about 3,000 airmen assigned to this base, 1,500 of them, about half, aircrew members, the remaining half of ground support personnel. We honor also the wives and families of our people, a number of whom are here today, who remained at home doing their part in the war effort, keeping those so very important letters and packages coming to our troops here. We know personally how anxiously our families read the daily news accounts of the massive raids over the continent, apprehensive over the number of planes lost, praying for the safety of their loved ones. Our 392nd Bomb Group was a closely knit unit with a high level of camaraderie and esprit de corps. Teenage boys became men overnight with a heavy load of responsibility, and they quickly learned how much others depended on them to do their job and do it well. There was a common bond and a common objective to give our level best to help bring the war to an end at the earliest possible time, to bring peace and a return home to our families. During the nearly 2 years our group was based here, we were blessed with an environment we will never forget, the warmth and hospitality of the British people. We've always felt fortunate to be assigned to this base in the midst of the Beeston-Wendling community, where you opened the doors of your homes, shared your table and your friendship, and did so much to give our people a true sense of a home away from home. The cordial feeling we found in the surrounding area complemented in a vital way the work of our own Red Cross unit and recreational facility on the station, whose staff included a number of British volunteers from this area. Its American director, Mrs. Bertie Larrick, of Columbus, Ohio, is with us today. During her tour here, in recognition of the high esteem in which she was held by our people, one of our B-24s was christened in her honor. The relationship formed with our British friends some 44 years ago has steadily grown stronger over the years, as countless number of our people testify when they return here for a nostalgic visit to this base and parish, renewing old ties with old friends. I would be remiss if I also failed to acknowledge and express our gratitude for the loving care that the people of the Beeston Parish have given voluntarily to our memorial grounds over the years, and the arranging of the memorial services each Memorial Day and Remembrance Day. And very briefly, because they would surely not approve even this brief mention, we owe a heavy debt of gratitude to Mr. and Mrs. Tom Scott for their donation of land for these memorial grounds and their devoted efforts in supervising the construction of this memorial on my left. And again, he too would adamantly veto any of these remarks. I want to acknowledge the dedicated effort and vital role played by our Memorial Committee Chairman, Carol Cheek, major donor, the leader, and the guiding force in completing this memorial. Our group was fortunate indeed to have this veteran step forward and accept this responsibility 3 years ago and bring this undertaking to its conclusion today. The record shows that during the period our group was assigned this station, August 43 until VE Day in May 45, we flew 285 missions, lost 185 planes, suffered 1,553 casualties, including 747 killed in action, over 800 wounded or prisoners of war. All these men were heroes in every sense of the word, who answered when their country called. My most vivid memories are the briefings of the air crews when the screen was pulled back, disclosing a dangerous, deep penetration target. The tension and apprehension was clearly evident on their faces, but when they filed out from the pre-dawn darkness to go to their planes, there was a look of resoluteness on their face that said, "This was our job, let's get on with it." Prime Minister Churchill, in referring to the Royal Air Force and their heroic defense of London in 1940 in the Battle of Britain, used the term, "their finest hour." This period, the 392nd Bomb Group was engaged in combat from this base, was our finest and proudest hour. The group earned a distinguished unit citation for a hard-fought mission to Gotha, Germany in 1944, in which the target, an aircraft factory, was completely destroyed. Please permit me to give an extract from the official citation. 392nd Bomb Group, 2nd Air Division, 8th Air Force, is cited for outstanding performance of duty in armed conflict with the enemy on 24 February 1944. The unit dispatched 32 B-24 type aircraft, the maximum number available, to bomb the most valuable single target in the enemy twin-engine fighter complex, the Messerschmitt factory and component factory at Gotha, Germany. Flying as a lead group in the division formation, they were attacked by the enemy upon entering the Dutch coast. In the bitter aerial battle that ensued, the group was viciously attacked for over 2.5 hours by approximately 150 enemy fighters with cannon and rocket fire, and even attempted air-to-air and cable bombing in a vain effort to disrupt the formation. The group maintained perfect formation, valiantly fought its way through the flak defenses to bomb the target with pinpoint accuracy, destroying it. Although 7 of their aircraft were lost to the relentless enemy in the battle to and from the target, and an additional 13 aircraft suffered battle damage, they accounted for the confirmed destruction of 16 enemy fighters and the damage of 5 additional fighters. The destruction of this high-priority target dealt a serious blow to the German Air Force and was a contributing factor to its impotency in the invasion of continental Europe. The aggressive courage, determination to do their task at all costs, and the combat efficiency of the air crews, together with the professional skill and devotion to duty of the ground personnel of the 392nd Bomb Group, have reflected great credit upon themselves and the armed forces of the United States. End of the quote. And so, as we dedicate this memorial to these brave men, we trust it will be our legacy for our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren, as well as those of our British countrymen, to serve in the years to come as a tribute to the bond that exists between our two countries, to our resolve that nothing is more precious than our freedom, that we're willing to pay the ultimate price, if necessary, to preserve it against any threat from outside the free world. I'll close with an extract from a dedication service by President Eisenhower in St. Paul's Cathedral, London, and which is inscribed on the wall at the American Cemetery at Mattingly. This wall contains 115 names of 392nd Group people, 45 of whom remain at rest there. I quote, "The Americans whose names here appear were part of the price that free men for the second time in this century have been forced to pay to defend human liberty and rights. All who shall hereafter live in freedom will be here reminded that to these men and their comrades we owe a debt to be paid, with grateful remembrance of their sacrifice and the high resolve that the cause for which they died shall live eternally."